Hey, welcome to Film Fanatics. My name is Dan.
My name is Justin.
I'm Joe.
And this month, we sort of were tossing around different names for it, but I decided on Spring Cleaning Month, and we couldn't come up with a better one.
Even though it is February.
It's for January, really, for the movies. But so this is the January Spring Cleaning Month, I guess. Basically what that means is we did this last year when we each brought a movie to the table that has been discussed at great length on the show by one or several of us, and we've never actually gotten to review it on the show. So we're going to do that this week with Justin's pick, Hanna, Joe's pick, The Gangs of New York, the listener's choice, Silence of the Lambs, a true Film Fanatics classic reference
Yep.
from the first couple of years. And my pick we're going to talk about first, and that is Bridesmaids, one that Joe had never seen, been begging me to just do a Bridesmaids month already.
Because you kept talking about it every year.
Yes, and now we'll see if you know why. Justin's not a fan, so I thought it would at least be a good talker, if nothing else. It's a 2011 comedy, and in this, Kristen Wiig is perpetually single Annie, Maya Rudolph is best friend Lillian, about to get married, and her new friend is the wealthy Helen Harris III, played by Rose Byrne. Immediately sensing the competition, the two bridesmaids try everything to undermine the other to gain Lillian's favor, and Annie only seems to push her childhood pal away. The rest of the bridesmaids are Wendy McLendon-Covey, Ellie Kemper, and Melissa McCarthy in her Oscar-nominated breakout film role. Chris O'Dowd and Rebel Wilson also get their breakout movie roles here, and the Oscar-nominated script by Wiig and Annie Mumolo, and directed and produced by some big names as well, directed by Paul Feig, one of Justin's absolute favorites, and produced by Judd Apatow, who we all know and have varying opinions depending on the movie. I think we can all agree on him.
Yeah.
Inconsistent. Yeah. But like many of Apatow's films, like Knocked Up, This Is 40, even Funny People,
raunchy,
or some of his earlier stuff, like Freaks and Geeks. Mm-hmm. Well, it is raunchy, but no, what I was going to say was that these are all real people. They're in outrageous situations, zany setups, which is kind of where Feig's touch comes in on this particular movie. But, because the few main characters are so real, I don't really think there's a lot of false notes in the film. It's sort of like Horrible Bosses in the respect that anything that happens in the film has real-world consequences, despite them being, outrageous or over-the-top situations. I think the movie is hilariously funny around every corner, but at times is a little bit sentimental, maybe even depressing for a little bit. But I think the cast gels really well together, specifically Kristen Wiig with literally everyone. I mean, Saturday Night Live was really her only main thing before this. Now we've seen her in many other things, Skeleton Twins obviously being a great example of her range. Mm-hmm. But, here she plays off of Rose Byrne excellently. She also plays off Melissa McCarthy very well. The roommates, Chris O'Dowd, the little girl that comes into the jewelry store in one of the funniest scenes of the movie. She is naturally gifted with everybody. John Hamm, who I didn't mention, she has a few great scenes with.
Never forget, Joe. Never forget.
Never forget.
Is it wacky? Yes. Is it female version of, say, something like The Hangover? Maybe. That was sort of bandied about when it came out. I think it's certainly a lot smarter than The Hangover. And I think it's, a bit more down to earth. But this is one of my favorite comedies, really probably ever. It's an easy A+ for me. Joe, we're going to go to you next, the newbie on the Bridesmaids.
Okay.
And then we'll hear the hate.
Okay.
But maybe a second opinion or a second viewing will Justin will reflect on that.
Maybe.
We'll see.
It's possible. But I'll tell you this much before Justin even goes. I could use a second viewing.
Is that right?
Yeah, because I feel like this one definitely deserves another one.
Okay.
Because I think that there's definitely a lot of good things in this movie, for sure. I think that there are pockets of really good writing. I think that the acting's really good. There's a lot of good chemistry. I think Wig's really good. And you're right, yeah. I like the fact that it is really down-to-earth, real characters, and it's a real story. And there are spurts that are very funny. Mm-hmm. Spurts that I thought were hilarious. But I think
not on the whole.
I think that my biggest problem with this movie is that it's marketed as a comedy when a lot of the time I didn't think it was funny. and that doesn't necessarily mean I think it was bad, but I felt like it was more of a drama than a comedy.
There were many dramatic moments.
I thought a lot of it was very dark, and I thought it was realistic and believable, and I thought there was a good story there for sure. But I didn't think that it was as a whole comedy. I think tonally it was all over the place. Maybe some of those ridiculous scenarios, they seemed like they were a bit off-putting sometimes. I felt like this movie was trying to do a lot of different things, and not all of it worked. I don't think it came together perfectly fluid myself, but I think there are a lot of good parts throughout it. So I think it's a good movie, but I did not think it was like laugh out loud funny.
Okay.
For most of it, to be honest.
Okay.
But like I said, performances were good. There's some good writing, and there were some funny moments, but I think tonally it was kind of all over the place.
Okay. And what would you give the film?
I'd give it a B.
Okay. Justin?
Well, with this one, I will say I'm glad I watched it a second time. And I can't say I liked it more, but I will say it gave me more clarity. And I feel like with this, there's so much to love, and for me, there's also so much to loathe. So let's get started on that.
Well, Feig.
Feig, though, I'm coming to terms with Feig. He is what he is. But to get to my actual review.
Actually, before you go, Justin, you made me remember something.
Go on.
I know that it's funny. This has kind of become the Feig McCarthy staple, like the beginning of that whole team.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I liked her character in this, but I think that she's been funny in other films. Personally, like I don't.
Well, I think she's a bit restrained in this film because she's not the star.
Like, it was a bit off-putting because I guess because I've gotten used to how she's kind of spitballed upon this. I thought that she was going to be more over the top.
Yeah.
And this one, it was like she was trying to be more subdued, and I thought that was weird.
Yeah.
Personally, so
and I told you before we watched it,
it was weird
to remember that this was the jump start.
I know,
I
know that, but it's just.
But because it was such a huge, star-making turn for her, they put her front and center immediately. Identity Thief was a year and a half later, and then
came everything else.
The Heat right after that.
Sorry,
so.
And then Tammy, no.
Oh,
that was unfortunate.
God.
We can all agree on that.
We all make mistakes, right, guys?
Yeah.
We do. It's true.
But no, to get back to this actual review. So with this one of the things I really think is the strongest aspect of this movie is it has a great protagonist. Kristen Wiig as Annie is really well developed, is really interesting, and the way she plays out over the course of the movie is pretty darn compelling.
True.
The problem is Feig doesn't have any idea what he wants this movie to be.
I can see that.
It starts off as this down and dirty romantic comedy, then a straightforward romantic comedy, then a lowbrow raunch fest, and then kind of sort of female version of Hangover. And he sort of keeps cycling around those throughout the entirety of the movie. There are moments that it gets really funny. There are moments where it gets really dramatic and serious, but appropriately so for comedy of this caliber. It never feels like it's a full-fledged drama, which I appreciate. But then you'll get other moments where, well, we'll just say the Mexican food scene, and for all of you Bridesmaids devotees, you know what happens.
If something sticks out like a sore thumb, it's that.
Yes.
Yeah, that scene was like
as well as the tennis scene, which leads to one of the best one-liners.
The tennis scene is great.
The tennis scene is great, but it's random slapstick comedy that sort of shows up.
That's
out
what
of
I'm
nowhere.
saying. Is like there's a lot of good scenes, but do they all gel?
Okay,
I don't know.
All right.
Like some of the moments are fantastic. like the scene in the jewelry store, I think is great. I think all the interplay with Chris O'Dowd is easily the best stuff in the entire movie. Mm-hmm. But then arguably so.
Yeah, I don't know. I think her and Rose Byrne are probably the best parts of the movie, but either way.
But I feel like some of the actual issues is a lot of the stuff surrounding the wedding, I felt didn't quite come together as nicely as they should have been. The stuff with Maya Rudolph never really comes to full fruition, and the villainy aspect, which I know you've hit up a few times, both on air and off, it's there, but I don't think it's nearly as strong as it should be.
Yeah, but she's not a bad person. That's the whole point of her character. You're talking about Rose Byrne, obviously.
Yes.
She's not a mean person, or at least she doesn't know that she's a mean person. That's why I like her character. Yeah, she's not Cruella. She's not Cruella de Vil here.
No, but
she's a trophy wife, I guess.
She's insecure, tries to hide it.
Yes.
Yeah, she has.
Yes. Which they do.
Which we see at the end.
Around to,
yeah,
but
and she's got an arc. She develops.
But I feel like the rivalry isn't nearly as strong as they're playing it out to be. But for me, the biggest aspect that really makes it, that drags it down, is Melissa McCarthy, who they start off as kind of a walking punchline, and then they try to give us this whole like empowerment thing, which is cool. And then they make her character extremely unlikable with this super dark, unpleasant joke at the last second that is followed by a mid-credit scene that's equally, if not more so.
I guess it depends on what you're into.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, the mid-credit scene is just a joke. Like, it's not. I know you're referring to her putting the gun in the whatever.
It's like, I just got to like you, and now you've done this. Are you freaking kidding me?
She's a little unstable, Justin.
She's a little unhinged, yeah.
Like, what don't you get about that? She's unhinged. She's a little deranged.
Well, here's the thing.
But she does have a great dramatic scene. You're right.
Yes. But here's the thing, though, Dan. They set up the entire movie as her being like this wild, spunky thing, and then all of a sudden, oh wait, there's more to her, and then nope, we're back to crazy psychopath again.
People can have multiple sides, Justin.
Yes, as Split made very apparent. But
they can have 28 sides.
All right, that's not where I was going with that.
Yes, I'm very complex. Truly, you could say theoretically he's the most complex character on film.
You're right. You're not wrong. M. Night Shyamalan presents Bridesmaids, I guess.
I'd see it.
I just don't agree with what you're saying, that's all. I think she has multiple sides.
It's got moments of greatness, but I don't think it ever reaches its full potential. I'd probably leave this one with a C+.
All right, well, it was a C, I think, before, so...
Yeah, more than likely.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. 10 more watches and you'll be right where it needs to be. All right, so Gangs of New York is next, and that's Joe.
Oh, all right. What a transition. Just like, let's do it.
Quite.
Let's do it.
But once again, we talk about the much talked about by me, Gangs of New York, Martin Scorsese's action historical epic, which is still about gangs and organized crime. The original type in America, actually, which focuses on the battling 5 Points gangs of various ethnicities. And you've got Daniel Day-Lewis, who really liked this script so much that he came out of retirement and got back into acting because of it. Yes.
How about that?
Came back to play Bill the Butcher, who was a fictionalized version of William Poole. They changed his name to William Cutting because he cuts people. They cut
so
people.
deep.
But basically, he is the leader of the... He is the leader of the Confederation of Native Americans, which is basically just the Anglo-white, people who hate the Irish, and they battle them, and they kill Liam Neeson, who actually is the father of Leonardo DiCaprio, known in this film as Amsterdam. And after being sent away to a boarding school, which, did such a good job reforming him, he comes back to the 5 Points to seek revenge on Mr. William Cutting by actually pretending to be his friend and learn from him, and actually develops kind of a sort of strange father-son relationship with him, even though he is planning to kill him. So it becomes a bit more complex, and you've got a lot of great people in this movie. You've got Cameron Diaz, of course, is the romantic lead. You've got a lot of people. You've got John C. Reilly. You've got Mr. Calvary, Brendan Gleeson comes up.
Of course.
Among Liam Neeson, I mentioned before. Many, many great people in this movie. You've got lots of bloody, old-timey destruction, which is based on a historical fact, which is interesting. And I guess the reason I always talked about this movie is because, I was always kind of a history buff, and I think it's interesting how many things there are in history that we don't talk about. And in schools, even if you do go over the Civil War, nobody ever talks about the fact the Union did bomb New York City because there were riots because people did not want to deal with the first draft. And then, of course, the embedded organized crime elements and how corrupt and terrible New York City really was in the 1840s and 50s. People talk about now nothing compared to back in the day when it was basically like the Old West in New York City. So what I like about this movie, they've got that unique aspect, and you've got just the whole presentation. I think that in terms of the set design and the costuming and some of the fight choreography, the makeup, the soundtrack, and you've got some great performances. I think Daniel Day-Lewis as Bill the Butcher, I think he's one of the great villains. I really do. Name aside, Bill the Butcher is what he's really known as when we draw to the whole cutting thing. He does a great job. He looks great. I think that Leo, I don't think this is his best role, but I still think he is very good in it because he's Leo.
Naturally.
I think they've got some good chemistry. I like a lot of the supporting characters in this one. I think it is pretty epic. And even though Scorsese does have a tendency to make a lot of his movies long, I don't really find this one to be too long. I think it's paced very well. I think that some things might not gel quite as well. Like maybe some points it is a little style over substance. Like, could we have gone deeper instead of just saying, hey, here's a little thing about what's going on. It's cool. Let's move on. But then again, there was a lot of presentation, and the main plot is simple and easy enough to follow. Classic revenge tale. And I don't know. I think the biggest thing I want to hear about from Dan is the whole Cameron Diaz thing. Because, I mean, I think that her doing dramatic, I think she does fine in this, personally. But I know that you think she's more of a comedy person, but even if she's the weakest thing about the movie, I don't think it's a significant flaw, personally.
Grade, Joe?
My grade is an A.
She's actually not the weakest part of the movie. The weakest part of the movie is Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh my. Okay.
He is Jack Dawson
Going rogue.
in the Old West, as you say, Joe.
Sort of. Old East, I guess.
I guess for this Old East. The mob, Jack Dawson. I mean, I understand, that this is not that far removed time-wise after Titanic. He did that in 98. This was a few years later.
Yeah.
His first collabo with Scorsese, though, right?
True.
Yeah, and the worst for me.
Uh-huh.
For his performance, specifically.
Okay.
I'm talking.
Okay.
I don't think he was quite up to the Scorsese touch yet. I think he's much better in The Aviator, and some of the later ones.
I can see that.
Diaz is okay.
Okay.
I don't think she is great. I think many people could have played it better.
Yeah.
But I don't think she's bad by any stretch.
What about Lewis, though?
Lewis is great.
Okay.
Now,
No question
here's
there.
the thing, though. The cutting.
Hey. That's not...
I'll never give a movie an A+ that uses a dumb,
Pun.
what's her name? Not Rapunzel. What's the girl in Passengers? Aurora.
Yeah.
Sleeping Beauty in Passengers.
Too obvious?
Unobtainium in Avatar. It's lazy.
But he is Bill the Butcher. That's
I know,
hey.
but that was his real name. It wasn't like it's a real person, and they changed his name for,
I don't know why,
the gag.
I don't know why they did that. Yeah,
It's like-
I always thought that was
But
weird.
it's not a gag-based movie, so it just it sticks
Yeah, it's
out.
not too many jokes.
It sticks out. Daniel Day-Lewis is great, though.
Okay,
I can't deny that.
that's the main thing.
And one thing I do agree with you on is the length is not really felt here.
Mm-hmm.
And Scorsese, I think, does that. Like, some of his, it's like, oh, dude, you gotta trim.
Yeah.
And then some of them are like, nah, like, this is cool.
Like
Yeah.
Aviator is a good movie, but you can feel that length.
You could maybe trim Aviator a little bit. That's not one that I particularly think is overly long. But like Goodfellas, you don't ever feel the length of that.
Oh,
you
no.
know. I know one of the longer ones is Casino, which I've not seen, but I know you guys are, both pretty big fans.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
But yeah, for the length, I think this one's okay. Neeson, yet again here, Neeson Scorsese collabo. We just did one of those with Silence.
True.
There you go.
And here was, I guess the first, right?
I think so.
I believe so.
Yeah.
He's not in it all that much because obviously, as you mentioned, Joe, he exits pretty early in
He
the
dies
film.
pretty early on. Cool scene, though.
Very cool scene, and he does a great job. I'm definitely a little beneath you, Joe. It's an A- for me.
Mostly because of Leo?
Almost a B+ because of Leo, to be completely honest. I mean, he's one of the 2 stars, and I just don't think he's that good.
Huh.
Justin?
Interesting.
That is interesting.
I'm gonna try not to say anything that had already been covered.
I feel like I was saying too
covered
much.
over a multitude of episodes. But no, I mean this is a very different shade of Scorsese. When I originally saw it, I was so used to the whole like organized crime. Every third word is an F-bomb. The Departed, cough cough. But
I gotta get that.
I would say is
Gotta get that jab in.
which was my first and unfortunate foray into Scorsese. But
Oh.
as though Gangs, I think is a nice change of pace and proof that he really does put a lot of effort and thought into his ideas. This really does feel like 1800s New York, and really doesn't glamorize the time period. It really does hit the gritty nature and in a dramatic contrast to the Wild West, which is quite often very, very dramatically romanticized and adored and.
Which I never really got.
Yeah.
I never understood. Everyone was getting murdered and
Yeah, it's kind of bad.
pillaging
Law,
anyway.
yeah. But
Yeah.
that's one thing I liked about it is that it did really portray it like, yes, it is kind of obviously Hollywoodized and romanticized a little bit because it's so picturesque, but a lot of the stuff that they show you, the little details and how things were, how things looked, what people did, like they obviously read the Gangs of New York history study, which I read that after this because I wanted to find out more about it. And they only really take like the first section of the book is where they focus on, because it is about the structure of organized crime in New York City. But like they go into detail, like all the little things, like a lot of the characters you see, little characters like Hellcat Maggie, the chick that dressed up like a cat, real person that did that, and like the little touches, like the bar, you'd pay like 5 cents or whatever, and they'd hook up a tube to a mixed drink of all different kinds of alcohol, and you could drink as long until you passed out. Stuff like that, the shanties, the stuff the firemen did. It was all real. Like that stuff, as ridiculous as it seems, it's how it was, apparently. So it's actually pretty accurate.
Well, that's good.
So what I like about this one is there's really two ways to approach this. You can look at it as a straightforward revenge story, which works effectively so. I'm not sure if I would classify it as the weakest performance, because I think when you look at all of the other Leo DiCaprio, Scorsese characters, Amsterdam's probably the weakest defined, but I think he's still an interesting character.
He's defined by his desire to get revenge and not much else.
That's pretty much his like main drive.
We don't know much.
Is there
about
more
him.
going on there? Yes,
a little bit. Like there is some conflict with, as he gets to know him, he hesitates killing him a little bit. You know,
I wasn't talking about the character. I was talking about the performance.
Well, maybe it's more complicated of a performance to handle because there is more nuance.
I was going to say, I feel like in someone else's hands besides Leo's, it were one-dimensional.
I agree.
I don't know at that time in his career, but...
No. But I mean, easily the star of the show is quite honestly the villain, who really does amp up the crazy over-the-top nature that this era was really depicted as for this movie. And I think which leads to the second aspect that I think really hit home the second time round, which was this sort of like brutal satire about what does it really mean to be an American? How do we define an American?
True.
It's a complicated question. It seems really simple, but it's not.
No.
And I think, especially in regards to the villain, that gets tackled in a number of different and interesting ways.
It's true, because on the surface, he seems like that big idea. I'm American. My father fought in the War of 1812, and I've got the American flag, and I'm all about America. And he seems like he hates everything that's not American, but then you find out he doesn't actually hate the Irish as much as you think.
Yeah.
And he's very complicated.
Very complicated.
Very, very complicated, despite his name.
Yeah.
Well, you can never excuse the name.
Lame name.
I mean, Day-Lewis's performance, insanely good. Just unbelievably so.
Like the last thing I ever saw him in before this was Last of the Mohicans. And if you look at Last of the Mohicans and
Versus
then this,
yeah.
it looks like I didn't even know it was the same guy. I'm like...
Dude's
what?
got range.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of range.
Yeah.
And then Abe.
And then Abe and...
Lincoln is
There
Lincoln.
Will Be Blood, which is kind of like this, but more evil.
Yes,
more evil.
yes, significantly more so. Not quite so much. Not as nearly as violent, but
Yeah, but definitely not as
certainly up
sympathetic.
there.
Bill the Butcher has his soft spots, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, a little bit.
I think this is a very complicated movie, which I do think it does run on a little long. Not significantly, but I'd say 20 minutes or so. This probably could have been a 2-hour, 20-minute movie instead of almost 3. But I have a lot of respect for this one. It was an A- when I originally saw it. I'd probably bump it up to an A now.
Oh, yeah.
Very good. Bumping all them movies up.
Yeah.
All right, well, Justin, let's stick with you and hear about your pick, Hanna.
Yes, this is an interesting
Speaking
one.
of...
This is the other, like, mine's Bridesmaids, this is Hanna for the contentious, like, you love it, I don't really care for it.
Another another Crudup, too, because on our other show, we talked about Jackie.
Oh, that's right, more Billy Crudup, that's true.
Actually, wait, or is it Billy Crudup?
Eric Bana,
No, it's
dude.
Eric, yeah.
Oh,
it's the
no,
Hawk.
it's the Billy Crudup. No.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, they look similar, but...
Saoirse Ronan plays the titular Hanna, a teenage girl on a mission to take out Marissa Vagler, played by Kate Blanchett, the CIA agent responsible for the death of her mother. After some time passes training in brutal conditions, Hanna heads out into the world, only to find out things may not be as they seem. Eric Bana, Joe's favorite Hulk, has indeed a supporting role.
It's all right.
So, I've talked in regards to our top 5s in fairly great length about this movie, so I'm going to try not to beat a dead horse. So we'll start off by saying this is a pretty scene before premise, but don't let that dissuade you. What I think really helps this out is director Joe Wright, who also did Atonement, which we also talked about, sells it like he's got nothing to lose. It's all about the spin with this movie, and there is tons of it. I think part of it is also Ronan's 100% commitment to the character, really focusing on the fish out of water nature, being so out of place, and also being so able to adapt on the turn of a dime, with some great action, some incredible cinematography, and easily some of the best editing I've seen of the past 5 years. And that's not without saying the soundtrack is truly one of the better ones of the eras as well. Though unfortunately got snubbed at the Oscars because not the biggest fans of techno.
Probably not.
But no, I think it's got a lot of originality to it. I think the sequencing really helps add to the pacing. Nothing feels like it's running on too long. And I feel like it's a much darker story than it could have easily played out as. Now, with that said, there are a few things that sort of fall short. Sometimes, particularly in the first major chase scene, some of the editing works, quite a bit of it doesn't. There's one moment where, for some reason, Wright decided to spin around the camera, which I think is bold, but also comes across as like, oh yes, we're going for the whole vertigo thing, which, whether or not it works, you tell me. Depending on your take on experimental cinematography, hard to say. And alongside that, even though it's a very spur-of-the-moment movie, many of the side characters are kind of sort of underdeveloped. In one particular regard, Cate Blanchett is the villain who, first of all, her accent fluctuates, which is strange knowing how dedicated Blanchett is to her acting. But I think she does still compensate with some of the sinister nature. We truly do loathe her over the course of the film, and I think alongside that, while it does play out in a very, very interesting way, the ending is kind of abrupt and a little bit on the safe side. It dovetails, but it fits a little too nicely. But I really do think it's a solid, unique thriller. I give it an A-.
All right. Well, we'll do what we did with Bridesmaids. We'll go around the circle that way. Joe, what do you think of Hanna? Your first time.
Yes.
I thought it was interesting.
Do tell, Joe.
Well, I definitely think that there's a lot of atmospherical things that worked really well. I think the soundtrack was really cool.
Definitely.
I think that there was an excellent use of lighting, some really good editing, some good camera work. I think that it's quite fast-paced in scenes, certain sequences. Can be fun, like the action scenes are good. I think there's a lot of good chase scenes. I think Saoirse Ronan is really good, and I think she kind of demonstrates it here. I think that she does a lot with this character, and I think that that's the positives. I think...
And into the next.
Those are pretty much all my positives.
Well, no,
There we go.
I think it's fun, but I think the plot's a little disjointed. Like, I remember some of the sequences where she is kind of in hiding, like at the time with some of those side characters, the family she hides with. I felt like that was a little out of place for some reason. Like, there was some comment. Like,
I could see it.
Isn't the one there and she acts
Yes.
dumb for it? I didn't understand why she came back to make it more dramatic in that one chase sequence with the crates. I was confused by that. The dumb stuff there.
There's a bonding moment with them, so I mean I can get it.
I guess that's my biggest problem is I feel like a lot of those personal connections with those characters are underdeveloped. I felt like every character was underdeveloped. I didn't feel like I got super invested in the story. Like, you're right, the basics, it's definitely
even her kind of.
Yeah,
I'm not so sure. I feel like with her the subtlety is really what sells it.
Maybe. And like I said, I think that a lot of the performances are good. It's just I didn't really feel like I knew any of the characters, really. Mm-hmm. I knew vaguely what was going on, but...
It's kind of sort of need-to-know basis.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely followed it, but I didn't feel like that there was anything... I don't know. Maybe it's because there was a lack of detailed conversation in the dialogue a lot of times. Like, they give you snippets of information, but I wanted to know a lot more. Like, I felt like this was a movie where you could have filled in the gaps with some real meat. Just like, I wanted, like, some detailed story about the history of these guys and what they're doing, and let's find out.
Get any of that.
And that's where I'm like, I guess there's some element of mystery there, but I wanted that, and I just felt like parts of it were empty. I thought there was definitely some good potential there, but this movie is mostly upheld by the performances and just a lot of the technical aspects, which I think make it interesting and fun.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'd say it was spectacular, to be honest. It's B-.
Okay. Yeah, look, the Ronan performance is, I mean, far and away the best part of this movie. If there's a secondary, it's Chemical Brothers.
Yeah, I like that
Go
movie.
on.
For sure. Yeah, and the editing is cool. There's some interesting moves there, Justin. I agree.
I like the shot at the end, wolf's mouth. Yeah.
But, I feel like this movie, other than Joe not being as developed or fleshed out, is... I think this movie sort of has a little bit of an identity crisis, which is, I know, hilarious because that's one of your problems with Bridesmaids. But, I feel like this movie wants to sort of play to the art house crowd, but then also throws in these, like, popcorn chases and, the sci-fi elements, and they say, oh, Cate Blanchett, let's, put her in. She always plays, big with the Oscar crowd, and she's terrible in this movie. This is the worst I've seen her. Her accent is, you're right on that, Justin, awful. And I just think in general, she's just not giving it her all,
Well, to be fair, I think kind of underwritten.
Maybe that's
her,
it.
I will admit, is definitely underwritten.
Maybe that's it. But I mean, even in roles where she's underwritten, and listen, Justin's going to blow his brains out when I say this.
Oh, no.
Monuments Men. She.
Oh, no.
Okay,
she
I don't agree with
is good, but her character is very underdeveloped. She's, one of the better aspects of that film.
I did like her in Monuments.
I mean...
I barely remember her character.
Well, she's one of the best. In that... One of the best of the Monuments Men people. I'm not saying the best
I get it.
part of
I get it.
all
I get
time,
it.
but,
No.
I don't agree, but I get it.
But look, no, this is just a bad performance from her.
I think bad might be a bit harsh, Dan. It's not
for her, it's bad.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, do I think she's overrated in general? Yes. Does that largely stem from her winning over Amy Adams at the Oscars? Probably. But I've seen her give very, very excellent performances, and this was far from it.
This compared to Katharine Hepburn and... In
Aviator. Yeah, she was great in that.
Yeah.
Scorsese bringing it back around.
Yeah.
But, it starts throwing in these plot details that are sort of irrelevant, and, family,
and Banna.
His
scenes were good, but I was like, I felt like I was watching
to him. Like, let's
look, look, Justin. If he had turned into the Hulk, it would have been amazing. Like, yes.
Somehow, I don't feel like that would have been an improvement for you, Joe. But
I don't know. It didn't.
I think it would have.
Honestly, because they would have had.
I know your feelings about the 2003 movie, Joe. Don't even try to lie to me about this.
It's not Eric Bana's fault, though. I've never complained about him. I've complained about the CGI monstrosity and other things.
Poodles. But there are some good things here. Obviously, Ronan really keeps us afloat.
No, I agree.
Oh, yeah.
She is awesome.
She's great,
She's awesome.
And I would say probably the first I'd seen her because I didn't see Atonement until we started doing the show. And then after that, I guess was like Budapest and some of her other more recent roles.
Definitely.
Because I remember not really knowing who she was when I saw this in theaters.
Okay.
But what I think is funny is you and I are on the opposite end of another female-centric action movie, Justin, that came out right around this time, Salt. Which, for the ones, it goes like Salt. Oh, I love Salt. Salt is up here. Like, Columbiana is, a little bit down from there. I liked Columbiana.
That was all right.
And then this, to me, is the worst of the three.
Look, I'm guessing you don't like Salt, Justin?
Oh my god.
He has so many problems with Salt.
Salt is really dumb.
Maybe we should have a Salt cast sometime because I've never seen it. And do you know why?
Jolie?
It's called Salt. I wasn't going to see
it.
Speaking of bad titles.
Don't care. It's a dumb name.
All right. Well, you know what? You're right. I never saw Lucky Number 11, so I guess we'll...
That's fair.
You're right. This gets a C from me.
Ooh.
I think I originally gave it a C+, actually.
So let me get this straight, though,
There's some
Dan.
things that stuck out to me.
Art house thrillers can't have chase scenes. Joe, old boy, would you like to chime in on
Very
this?
art housey, very chase scene. He's correct.
Okay, but the way it is done with the Chemical Brothers soundtrack over top is a very, like... I don't want to say Michael Bay, but because that's disrespectful to the Chemical Brothers.
I was gonna say.
I think it's not quite as generic. It's not like Hans Zimmer or something. Dun-dun-dun. It's not that
Needs
generic.
more Brahm.
No, but it's just very like the Chemical Brothers is a very I don't know. I guess they are kind of, they're not art housey, but
they're not exactly mainstream.
I don't know.
Like
no,
indie.
but I'd say like Flaming Lips would be like
Okay.
a more
Yeah.
indie example. You know,
All
Chemical Brothers have definitely had some hits. You know, whatever. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I think you can do both. You can be artsy and actiony at the same time.
I was gonna say, I mean, there's a time and a place, but
It's been done, but I'm just
Yes.
saying that's one of the, issues with it that I have.
The spinning of the camera thing did make me dizzy. I will admit.
There were some spin moves.
but
on the
maybe that
cameras.
was the point, though.
I mean,
I didn't
that's
necessarily mind
that's like
those,
the one.
but
That's like the one editing choice I wasn't quite on board with. The rest of it I thought was actually pretty well done in terms of where he placed it and other aspects. And I'll still give him credit for at least attempting something unique and different.
Yeah,
Did it work?
no,
like
but
I
said,
such as experimental filmmaking.
it's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting movie. You could agree with that, right, Dan? Interesting?
yeah, it doesn't bore me.
There you
If somebody
go.
told me I
Hey,
had to watch Hanna again, I'd be like,
and
all right,
remember,
it's not my
that's-
favorite, but I'll watch it.
pretty much the worst thing is to be bored during a movie.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I wasn't bored. The Chem Brothers kept me awake.
There you go.
Good to know, Dan.
And
Good to
Kate
know.
Blanchett's flossing scenes were certainly.
Yeah, that I can't justify.
There's another example. Like
Why?
let's throw in something experimental and try to play to a different crowd than I think is the core crowd for this movie. Let's
Control
have her,
freak.
throwing her teeth, flossing her teeth. All right, well, so that's where we land on Hanna. Finally is Silence of the Lambs. This is one that we've all been agreeing with in top 5 since the
What?
beginning of
What's
the podcast.
What's Silence the Lamb?
Tim, if you're listening, sorry, pal.
This was voted by the listeners for this month. We had quite a few real popular ones up there, and most of them didn't really get any votes because this was so overwhelmingly the victor. Mean Girls got a few.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And what was it? Renaissance
Got Man one.
got one.
Got one.
Buddy James
One.
voted for
But
it.
Coming to America didn't get any. I mean, I thought we
That
put
was
up
a sad day.
some good ones that,
Oh, yeah.
that didn't get any love because
Yeah.
this is such a beloved film.
Yeah.
So basically, quick synopsis: Clary Starling, the young FBI cadet, played by Jodie Foster, seeks out help from incarcerated killer Hannibal Lecter, played by Hopkins, to catch another serial killer who skins his victims, known as Buffalo Bill, and he is played by Ted Levine, or Levine, I'm not sure. And this film, if you don't know, is one of only 3 movies ever to win all 5 of the major Oscars: picture, director, screenplay, and both of the acting awards. And really, I think the accolades for this film are so deserved. This is not a film I would call overrated. I think it's rated. It's like Shawshank Redemption. It's like
can't
no,
really
it's
argue
that
rated.
good.
It's rated properly.
Yes.
And everyone agrees, basically.
This movie is great. Now, I never saw it until, I guess I must have seen it before we started doing the podcast, but it's fairly recent. I would say within the last 5 years for sure that I first saw this. I'm not sure if it sort of shied me away because of the nature of the themes. I wasn't sure maybe how visceral it would be or gory. It turns out it's really not, though.
It's like
Scene or
one or
two.
2 scenes, yeah.
Yeah, well, and the idea that people in the industry, I guess, say, oh, this, it's the only horror movie to ever win Best Picture. I don't consider this a horror movie.
It's a thriller.
It's a thriller. It's a thriller through and through, and everybody is, top of their game here. I'm not actually sure if it's the best Foster performance, but at the same time, it can't be argued that it's certainly amazing and up there. But she has a lot of good performances. She was great in The Accused, and some of her other ones. Hopkins, I'm not as familiar with. I have not seen a lot of his movies, to be honest. So I can't say where this falls. But man, is he good in this movie. Everything comes together. The story's great. The mystery's great. The script is great. The directing is great. Who directed this movie?
Jonathan Demme.
Oh yeah, I love that guy. So yeah, he does a great job really capturing the mood of all aspects. He captures the mood of her visiting him in jail. He captures the mood of Buffalo Bill's hideout. He captures the mood of the other FBI agents, trying to figure out on their own what's happening. And
That's true. Each area is very distinct, but you never feel like it's a different movie.
right. Each one, yeah, exactly. Like
Interesting.
he does a really good job, I think, kind of bridging those all together, yet not, yet making them distinct.
That
So-
one technique I think is pretty cool that I didn't really think about until now is throughout the movie, you, I guess, kind of lying in with the theme of the serial killer pursuing people. Even from the beginning of the film, you feel like the camera is kind of running with Foster, following her like somebody's watching her.
Yeah, that's true.
You often are introduced with it through the eyes of the protagonist. So, like, I don't think he's done too many other things that I know of, but this film was still
between
great.
this and Philadelphia, I mean, he really does need to do no more films.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
I think he's made his mark.
He's made his mark. But
he's run the gamut.
No, look, it's a clear A+ for me. You guys go.
I mean, I don't really know if I have too much
I
to
mean,
add.
we've talked about it so much in the top fives.
I mean, as far as Hopkins goes, I think I've seen a lot of his movies. I love Anthony Hopkins. I think he's a great actor. I feel like the thing about him that's interesting is that he normally doesn't do villainous roles like this. Like, I mean, usually he's, more dramatic, neutral, generally, I guess, good guy per se, often a protagonist. Here, he plays such a complex villain, and I know it's been brought up before, but the fact that he's able to convey so much with his performance in such little screen time is just awesome.
Yep.
Like, honestly, I always forget, like, they say, what is it, 16 minutes?
25, I believe.
Yeah, like 25 minutes in this 2+ hour movie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. I feel like it's a lot more because you're always sticking with that, and you feel the presence of the character throughout it because you're still, like, reminiscing about it. You feel the effect of it even after the scenes are over. You really feel Lecter. And even though it's not his film, I think the Buffalo Bill is a terrifying villain. I think that there's some really good definite visuals there. As far as the gore goes, not too much, but the little bit they show you is
skinning
enough.
a little bit is
like
certainly gross.
It's stuff that's
unsettling.
the corner of your eye, like that one scene where she goes into the bathroom and there's like a obviously decaying dead body there. That's pretty gruesome, but that's like 2 seconds.
Right.
I was gonna say there's not like a leave the theater moment. There's just like a look away from the screen if you're.
Yeah, but it's just kind of disturbing without the gore.
Yes,
it's definitely a thriller. I think they kind of cheated because it's horrifying. It is scary at points, but not a horror movie now.
No, which was not what I thought it was. Actually, I'm sorry.
A+, I assume.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Oh
yes,
my gosh,
he's not wrong. He could say.
I am jumping the gun. I
think
apologize.
it's a trip A+. We've talked about it.
It's an A+ for me. I don't have any problems with it really.
Well, I mean,
you've read the book though, so you must.
I have, and I read the sequel, Red Dragon. I can't speak to, but
I like that movie. Manhunter too, actually,
and Manhunter.
It's not bad. They're both good.
Stories for another day. But no, with this one, there was a lot of build up for this one for me. I knew of this one's reputation. I didn't get to see it until years after the fact. Hannibal had come out by that point.
What's a Fight Club for you?
It was sort of Fight Club-ish. I wouldn't say it.
Ooh.
That was me.
I mean,
Club.
I know.
To be fair though, I never actually got the spoiler to Fight Club.
Oh yeah, that's hard.
I was actually one of the few who wasn't affected by the Fight Club spoiler. But But no, with this one, I always was told this one was really scary and it's creepy.
Yeah, it's unsettling.
Disturbing.
It's unsettling and disturbing, but it's not scary.
No.
It's definitely straightforward thriller, not an actual horror film.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's plenty of sources like IMDb who would say I'm wrong. But that does sort of impact me in various regards. But no, I mean this is still a good movie. I still think it's a really worthy adaptation. I mean, Jodie Foster gives a sensational performance. Mm-hmm. Hopkins, I've seen him do great. I've seen him bomb miserably, but this is certainly one of the big standouts. And clearly the guy has not lost his touch. Westworld.
Yeah, he's still creepy.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Creepy comes in all shapes and sizes with Hopkins. But
that's true.
But, I mean, yeah. The guy just commands every scene he's in. And the interplay is easily what makes this movie stand the test of time. Mm-hmm. Now...
maybe not an A+.
Where I do have issues is I've never really been a big fan of how Demi directed this film. I think part of the problem is he never lets the mystery breathe. Instead, he just sort of lets the two sort of storylines play out against each other and has more or less Lecter serve as pretty much a walking Deus Ex Machina.
That is true. He does kind of tell her all the answers constantly.
It's like... Can we actually spend some time working on the initial mystery to this?
Well, towards the end, there's a lot of mystery. It's kind of cool, uncovering some clues. Some like that's her investigation of the
here
town.
And there. But I think like the fun of this movie, in terms of like the actual like dramatic scenes, is the interplay in relation to like who is Lecter, who is Clarice Starling and sort of what has impacted them to be the way they are.
I guess it's not really about the mystery so much because they show you who Bill is. They show you kind of
Yeah,
what he's doing.
and I think if they were going to go that route, if you're going to have Hopkins sort of piece it all together, run with it.
So you wanted more of Lecter?
Well, I mean, if you're going to have him like run the show of like, okay, how can we get ahead of the game here? Let's actually get somewhere with that. But,
So you think that like having her work with him more maybe to figure out the mystery, have more of the interplay,
or at least run with the clues, so we're actually more involved in solving the initial mystery rather than well, we've already seen the killer. It's just a matter of when do they get to him.
I think that the main draw for this movie then that maybe distracts people from that, at least me, is I think that the characters are so interesting, getting them to kind of learn more about each other, and that's the mystery. Is more fascinating than maybe the finding the
I
killer.
wouldn't say that's the mystery, though. I would say that's like a character beat, not an actual mystery component.
Character beat, but I mean, you're like, for instance,
But
we don't know
but
her
They've had things
past.
where, you know, I can't... There was a TV show where every week they showed you who did it and whatever, and the whole episode was how
do
are
we
they going
catch
to
him?
solve him. It wasn't a show I watched. I think it was on when I was young, but like, I mean, that's a technique that is used, and I
used.
think it's effective at times. I think here it's effective.
For me, it's more or less a matter of if you're going to go the mystery route, commit to the actual mystery. Don't just beat around the bush.
It's fair.
And I mean, I won't say the way he executes it is bad. I just think there were better ways to implement it, and I've got mixed feelings about the whole dad subplot that really doesn't hold much weight, with the exception of one scene that's a very good scene.
You don't like the whole backstory thing?
It's not really a backstory. It's like one minor dramatic beat that gets one callback. It is
kind of the crux of the
it's
movie,
not
though.
really the crux, though. It's
in terms
I
of
think
like
you're-
her development as a
it's
character.
not even her development. It gets one callback, Joe. It's a great callback, but it gets one callback.
Well, if you're talking about the actual line callback, yes, but I mean, the theme of what
It's
she's
in
trying
her-
to do is, like metaphorically, the lamb, save the lamb. He talks about it. I mean, it's a little on the nose, but they call it Silence of the Lambs for a reason. It's not just a brief callback for that one line. It's
referring
wrapping up-
primarily to like big quid pro quo scene where they're sort of breaking it down psychologically speaking. But I mean, for the most part, the mystery is like the whole Buffalo Bill stuff, not the whole daddy issues thing. I get it. Lecter's a psychologist, but
Well, I always kind of thought that was the real point of the movie, though. I mean, the plot stuff is Bill, but the interesting stuff is the character.
But yeah, nobody remembers the movie for Bill.
I mean, they
which is
remember
also
It's
part
Lecter's
of the problem.
movie. I mean,
it's interesting. I mean, it might maybe it's unintentional.
Lecter kind of unintentionally hijacks the movie.
yeah, he does, and that's why he was up for best
That's
actor.
why
and
people
not
know
Ted
this
Levine.
movie, though.
But yeah, I mean,
Bill's good, though.
Bill's
good villain.
Bill's fine, and he's a good villain. I agree.
Great guy.
But he's no, he's not a great guy at all.
Oh, how charming!
But he's sort of the secondary
Villain.
Yes, when he really should
because
be
he's not as interesting.
Yeah,
Nearly.
no.
All right, well, as we go on, is it even an A from you, Justin? There's a lot of issues.
A lot of issues.
No. I mean, like
Clearly
I
not
said,
A plus.
is it a good movie? Yes. Is it a very good movie? Yes. Is it the amazing thriller everyone makes it out to be? It's really good.
Oh,
it's
see, I
not
say
great.
yes.
I think
All
it's
right,
pretty
so
good.
what's your grade?
I'd probably go a very, very low.
Don't
tier
say
A.
low A.
Oh, no.
That's called an
tier
A minus.
No, he doesn't want to say it. Well,
Like,
you know
it's
what?
bordering on A minus.
You know what? Maybe I've always looked at it for its dramatic elements. Maybe that's what I like. Because a lot of drama, too.
Well, there's a lot of drama.
There's definite drama.
The drama and the thriller, I think, is great. The horror, I think, is sort of non-existent.
He's actually a ghost.
Yeah, the whole
Oh,
time. Yeah. Huh. All right. So you think it is a little overrated, Justin?
A little bit.
I mean, not significantly, but
Ah.
it definitely gets overquoted. That's for certain.
Well, yeah,
There's a
but
couple of
that's
good quotes.
just a few.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a very interesting way to end the show. I did
Yeah.
not really.
Twist.
Quite
Much like
see that
Silence of the
coming.
Lambs, you know?
Yeah, there's a bit of a mystery element to it, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so that is our monthly old classic podcast. Our final one will be next month, where we're all sort of bringing a movie that reflects our life in some way. So that will be coming up next month, and look for another regular show coming up very soon, and of course our Star Trek review shows as well. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you back here next time.